Hey everyone, I'm Jessi Harry and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, please be sure to subscribe. We do lots of fun food related content around here, what's for dinners, easy recipes, grocery hauls, things like that. So if you like that kind of stuff, make sure to stick around. This week's What's for Dinner is actually part of a playlist with a bunch of other great YouTubers who are also doing What's for Dinner videos. The link to that playlist is going to be in my description box below, so make sure that you're going to check that out. There's so much fun recipes that they're going to be doing and lots of What's for Dinners to watch. The playlist is hosted by Julia from Julia Pacheco's channel and then Caitlin from Livin' That Mama Life channel. So if you haven't checked either of those women out, be sure to check them out. Love them both. They make really great videos all around. Not just What's for Dinners, lots of fun baking, things like that. I think Julia just did like a house tour. So if you're into that, make sure to follow them as well. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started on this week's What's for Dinner. Alright, so first up is going to be a chicken gnocchi soup. So not pictured right here is the chicken. It is defrosting, that's why it's not here, but you will see it come in later. So we've got some spinach that we're going to chop up a little roughly, some chicken bouillon cubes, carrot, celery, white onion, salt, pepper, minced garlic, some salted butter, potato gnocchi. Also got our seasonings here. We've got some rosemary, thyme, and nutmeg, flour, milk. I couldn't remember if I showed you the chicken bouillon cubes, so here they are again. Some heavy whipping cream and some olive oil. So we're going to get this started in the pan because I'm making a double batch tonight. So we're going to put some olive oil in our big pot. Yes, I do have a bigger one than that. And then we're going to add in all of our vegetables. So first thing is our onion. Then we're going to add in our carrot. And our celery. Like I said, I made a double batch, that's why there's so much of it. So cut it in half, it's just a regular recipe. Alright, so we're going to get those stirred up, get the olive oil coated on that, and you're just going to let the vegetables cook until they're nice and softened over, about a medium heat. And then once those are softened, you're going to add in your garlic. Get all that stirred together and cook it for a little bit longer. Let that garlic soften as well and mix in with all of your vegetables. And now I'm pouring in the water and putting in the chicken bouillon cubes for my chicken broth. If you're using chicken broth at this point, you would just put in your chicken broth. And then we're going to do our seasonings, which is rosemary and thyme, which I might have said those backwards as I showed them. Apologies. And then some nutmeg. I know that sounds a little weird, but the nutmeg is actually what makes the soup what it is, so definitely don't not put that in. And then we're going to be putting in some salt and pepper. Not too much, you can always taste the soup later and add more if you'd like. Alright, so now that all the seasonings are in there, we're going to stir this up. Get everything all mixed together. And now we're going to pop in that finally defrosted chicken. So I'm putting in all the chicken breast. Mine are small, but if you have large ones, I recommend, cutting them in half because you are going to let the chicken cook in the soup. So just putting the lid on and we're going to let the chicken cook. So while the chicken's cooking, I'm going to make a roux. That's also going to go in the soup. Plenty of butter. Once the butter's melted, you'll add in your flour. And then you're going to cook it and stir it until it is smooth and there are no more lumps. And then once it's at a good consistency, you're going to pour in the milk and heavy whipping cream, stirring as you go. Make sure that's nice and blended. And then you're going to add in salt, pepper, and let that simmer until the roux gets nice and thickened. Make sure to whisk often, and it's gonna look something like this, almost like a cream of mushroom soup. That's what you want it to be like. Set that to the side, and now I've pulled out my chicken because it is done cooking. You don't want it to overcook, and so you can shred this or you can cut this up. It's whatever you would like. I wanted chunks of chicken in my soup, so I just cut it up like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. And once that's done, you're going to set that to the side while you go back to adding things to your soup. So next thing is I'm adding the potato gnocchi. And you're just going to cook it for as long as the directions on your package says. Make sure to break them up before you cook them because they do stick together. So I'm going to add the lid and set the timer for as long as the directions say on the package. Right, so now that the gnocchi is cooked, you're going to add in the roux that you had set to the side. I'm getting dangerously close to the top, y'all. I might have used my bigger soup pot, but it all fits. It all fits. We live dangerously here. All right, so now that you've got that all in there, get that stirred up. And then we're going to add back in our chicken. So scrape that all back in, get the chicken warmed back up. And then lastly, I'm taking that spinach that I roughly chopped and putting it in there a little bit at a time. Personal preference, you could use less spinach than what the recipe calls for, half, maybe even a little bit less than half. I really enjoy spinach. It was a little too much. The soup was still fantastic, but my own personal opinion, use less spinach. So I just put the lid on there, and you're just gonna wait until the spinach wilts so you can serve it. So here we are plating it up. And as I'm putting it into the bowl, you're going to see all the spinach that's in there. Like I said, I really like spinach. Just felt like it was too much, almost like a spinach soup. My husband agreed, and he likes spinach probably more than I do. But here we go. We're gonna top this with some Parmesan cheese. I just used a shaker cheese, and we serve this with breadsticks. But the kinds with mozzarella on the inside, because they didn't have the regular kind. Oh dear, they were amazing. So the soup was really, really good, really good. We ate all the leftovers, and I made a huge batch. It was even better the next day after the seasonings had had a lot of time to soak through, so definitely try this. So next up is going to be a taco pizza. So we've got some ground turkey. You can use ground beef. This is what I had in my freezer, so that's what I used. Some sour cream, some taco seasoning. You can use the packets. Mexican style shredded cheese, some crescent rolls, 2 cans of them, and then a block of cream cheese. So this is obviously a very simple recipe. Won't take long to make, so let's get it going. So first things first is we're going to preheat the oven to 375 degrees so we can cook the crescent rolls in there. So next I just opened up the crescent rolls, and I'm laying them on a big baking sheet that I put aluminum foil and sprayed down. Make sure you use a big baking sheet. Don't use a small one, because it's made, this whole recipe is for like a big pizza. And then you just put all the crescent rolls down, make sure all the seams are pressed together, and press it down really well. I just kind of made it fit. So now that that's done, you're gonna slide it into the oven, and you're gonna cook that for 10 minutes, which in my oven was the perfect amount of time. So while the crust is cooking, you wanna make the taco meat. So I'm just putting the raw turkey meat into a pan. You're gonna let that cook, get it chopped up. And then once it's cooked, you're gonna add in your taco seasoning. I used homemade. I used about 2.5 tablespoons. And you're gonna add in your water and then let it cook until the meat has soaked up all of the water, either low and slow or, like me, fast and high, because I need it done. So I'm taking the cream cheese and the sour cream. Your cream cheese does need to be at room temperature, and I'm mixing it together. You are going to see me do it with a spoon. It is better to use a mixer. My mixer was dead. It needed to be charged. This is how I did it. If you don't have a mixer and you need to do it like this, that's fine. Just if you use a mixer, it's more creamy, more blended together. It tastes the same. I guess it's all about texture. So now that the crust is ready, this is how it looks, nice and golden brown, and you're gonna kind of let this cool down before you add in the sauce. So it's cooled down, so we're gonna add in that cream cheese sour cream sauce, just smear it all over. And here are the toppings that we have to choose from for the pizza. You can do none of these toppings. Some of this stuff, like the sauces, it was just on the side. We didn't actually put it on the pizza. It was just, if you wanted it, you could have it. Dealer's choice, really. That's what's really great about this recipe, very customizable. All right, so now we're adding in the ground turkey taco meat. It's not going to cover the entire thing. That's fine. That's why you're going to add other toppings, or maybe if not vegetables, the cheese at least. So we have all that on there. Now we're going to top it with cheese. So at this point you can stop if you have picky eaters or if you just really like something simple. But we don't stop there in this house. So we did this half and half. On one side we just did cilantro and pickled jalapenos for my son, and then on the other side we had it large and loaded. Lots of peppers from the garden, tomatoes, green onions, the works. So here is the whole pizza. This was so good. It looks beautiful, doesn't it? Honestly, when I saw the recipe on Pinterest, I was like, oh, it's too simple. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled by how simple and easy it is. So here I am plating it up. So we've got 2 pieces of pizza. That's what I started with. Some black beans. I did do black beans on the side. I know that seems kind of odd, but tacos. And then we just served lettuce on the side instead of on the pizza like the recipe said. We love this. This is something I will make again. My son ate like 5 pieces of pizza. I ate 4. It was really easy. Like I said, very customizable and budget friendly and can feed a crowd. Anyways, have to try this. So next up are chicken Philly cheesesteaks. That just sounds wrong because they're chicken, not steak. But anyways, we have some chicken, some provolone cheese, some butter, bell pepper, onion, mushrooms, canola oil, black pepper, salt, which I did not use, Cajun seasoning, and lemon pepper. I know that sounds a little odd for chicken Philly cheesesteaks, but the seasoning is going to work out tremendously. All right, so first things first, we're going to get some butter in a pan and let that melt. Using a lot of butter in this video, but I'm not ashamed because I really like butter. And while that butter is melting, we're going to season the chicken and make sure it's well coated. So first I did the lemon pepper, added some, stirred to coat, added some more. Then we're adding the Cajun seasoning, which I did the same, added, stirred, added, stirred. You just want to make sure your chicken's well coated. That's why I always do it in stages like that, so it doesn't just clump all on one side. Then lastly, we did the pepper. A reason why I didn't use the salt is because the Cajun seasoning has salt in it, and I used salted butter, and that kind of seemed excessive, and these turned out great. So now the butter's melted and the chicken is seasoned. I'm going to pop all that chicken into the pan, and then we're going to top all the vegetables. So onion, bell pepper, and mushrooms. The recipe only called for the onion and chicken, so you don't have to add the other ones. That's just what I like. So I stirred all that together, got it good and coated. And you're going to let this cook until the chicken's all the way cooked through and your vegetables are the consistency of which you like. So here's what ours looked like once done. The chicken was really tender. The vegetables were pretty soft. That's how I like them on my Philly. I don't really like them tender crisp. That's just a personal preference. So I took a hoagie roll and melted provolone cheese on it, and then I put the meat and vegetable mixture on it. As you're gonna see, I should have used a bigger roll. This this thing was jam-packed. So for mine, I added mayo, lettuce, and tomato. Everyone could put whatever they wanted on theirs. I did have some jalapenos out, but honestly the Cajun seasoning made it have the perfect amount of spice. A lot of times with sandwiches that I make at home, I use like the French bread, but I thought, oh, that's gonna be too big. No, look at this. I'm like praying it doesn't just topple over in the video because it's so big. I served this with some French fries, which you can barely see over that massive sandwich, and here it is, kind of falling apart. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but don't be fooled because it tasted really, really good. The combination of the seasonings was very unexpected, but did really well. And this made a lot for at least 2 different meals. All right, so last up, we've got 1 dinner, 2 recipes. So the first recipe is going to be a garlic butter herb salmon that I'm going to bake in the oven. So we've got a big piece of salmon. It's about 2 pounds. I am going to cook the entire thing. Got some rosemary, thyme, unsalted butter, lemon. Then we of course have some minced garlic, some parsley for garnish, some salt, pepper, like always. So that's going to be the main. And then for the side, I'm making a mushroom pasta. So we've got some spaghetti noodles, some portobello mushrooms, olive oil, Parmesan cheese, salted butter, and then salt, pepper, garlic, and parsley for garnish. I do have 2 recipes that I follow loosely below, but I'm going to do a lot of my own things, so just be aware. So first things first, we're going to take a baking sheet, put some tinfoil on it, spray it down with some cooking spray, and then I'm taking some pats of butter and I'm putting them down in the shape of the fish, guesstimating of course, but we all know how salmon looks. Wide at the top, small at the bottom. And now I'm taking that fish and I'm putting it over the butter, tucking the butter underneath as I go. This is already a little bit different than the recipe because they melt the butter and then pour it over, and I didn't do all that. Okay, so I'm also just going to get any moisture off the top of the fish. And then we're going to put some salt and pepper on top of your salmon. Do not be afraid to salt your fish. Fish does really well when it's salted. Of course, you don't want too much, but just don't be afraid of salt. Don't be stingy with it. Next, we're going to put the rest of the pats of butter on top of the salmon. See, wow, so much butter. Like I said, no shame. And then we're going to put in the seasoning. So the recipe that I loosely followed called for fresh rosemary and thyme. I didn't feel like doing all that. I just used dried rosemary and thyme, which honestly worked out perfectly well. I will say, I wish I would have used a little bit less. The flavor was really good. I just didn't like the texture of it being coated on the fish, but that could just be a personal preference for me. And then lastly, I took half of a lemon and I squeezed it on top of the salmon. I think the recipe called for a tablespoon of lemon juice. I just cut a lemon in half, squeezed it on there, called it a day. No need for measuring. All right, so now that you have all that together, you want to wrap the fish in the tinfoil, but loosely. You don't want it to touch the fish. So you're going, and also make sure those ends are crimped up so the butter doesn't escape in your pan. And then I just took another piece of tinfoil and put it on top so it wasn't so tightly bound together. Easier to check when it's loose like that, and then nothing's going to pull off the top of the fish. So you're going to move your baking rack to the bottom of the oven, slide your fish in there, and you're going to cook it on 400 for the time that should be for the thickness of your fish. I put it for 12 minutes. I think I ended up cooking it for like 20 because of the thickness of my fish, so keep that in mind. So about halfway through I realized I didn't put the garlic on. Go me. So I took it out. And of course just check the doneness of it because you don't want to overcook fish, and added the garlic. And then I slid it back in and cooked it until it was almost cooked all the way through. And then once it was almost cooked all the way through, we took it out again and we set the oven on broil high. I'm gonna slide the fish in, but I'm going to not put the top piece of tin foil back on there. I'm gonna leave it open. The point of broiling is to brown it. That's why when you put it in, you want it to not be cooked all the way. Mine was kind of already all the way cooked, so I don't actually broil mine for too long because I did not want it to be overcooked and rubbery because I just cannot handle fish that way. So here it is, fresh out of the oven and done. It was really good. It wasn't as crispy as I like I normally cook mine in a cast iron, so it's very crispy. But the flavors are really good, and it being cooked in butter kept it very moist. So now we're gonna do the noodles. I'm gonna get some water boiling, and once it's boiling, of course, throw those noodles in. And while that's going, I'm gonna melt some butter in a pan. Oop. For the mushroom pasta. And now that that's melted, I'm gonna toss in the portobello mushrooms. And you're gonna give that a good stir, and you're gonna let that cook for about 5 minutes until the mushrooms are sauteed in a nice golden brown. While that's happening, I'm pulling out some water, about a half cup from the noodles, right before I drain them in a colander in the sink. You'll need that for your pasta here in just a little bit. Your pasta sauce, apologies. All right, so now that your mushrooms are nice and sauteed, you're gonna add in your minced garlic, some salt and pepper. You're gonna cook it for about a minute more. Make sure that you continue to stir so your garlic doesn't burn at the bottom of the pan. Get that garlic infused in the butter, and then you're gonna toss in your noodles, rogue noodle that I didn't notice until the end, some butter, your reserved pasta water, and then Parmesan. So once all that's added, you're gonna take some tongs and stir this all together and get it all coated, the butter melted, and once that's done, you want to taste it. Add more salt, pepper, Parmesan cheese. I added more Parmesan and cracked black pepper. I also added a little bit of the olive oil. I forgot to show you that, but definitely add to your taste of what you like. I normally try not to add any more salt because people can do that once they put it on their plates. But for me, the cheese and the black pepper was a big thing. Cracked black pepper is so good on simple noodle dishes like this. All right, so now that it's all done, we're gonna plate it up. We've got a piece of salmon. And then we have the noodle dish. I made sure to top mine with plenty of mushrooms. I love mushrooms. That's just me, so I made sure to get plenty of them. And then we also just served this with some steamed broccoli. I leave it plain, and then everyone can put on whatever seasoning that they want. So I also topped the noodles and the salmon with the parsley for garnishment. I did some lemon pepper on my broccoli. That's what my son does too. And of course I put red pepper flakes on my noodles because I love red pepper flakes. So this turned out really good. Like I said, I'm normally a cast iron skillet salmon lady, but cooking it in the oven with the butter made it where I felt like it didn't get overcooked and rubbery. So if you like meals that look really fancy, but honestly don't take that much time, try this. It was delicious. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye-bye.